What's up, YouTube? It's your girl. We back in. It's City Girl Sid. Yes, I'm back. I hope you've been good, enjoying the warmer weather. You know, I'm in Atlanta, so it's definitely getting warmer. Today, I'm back. I want to do an investigative video today. And this video is just going to be about the case of Lauren Smith Fields. And this story, guys, is one that is, honestly, it's very terrifying for me as a young black woman, just, you know, growing up, living, and then wanting to have fun and, you know, be outside or whatever. So we're just going to dive right into it. So if you don't know, Lauren Smith Fields was a 23-year-old black woman from Connecticut. Her friends would describe her as a very bubbly person, very into fashion, beauty. She was an influencer on social media, and she really just, you know, loved to have fun, loved being around her friends and family. She had a really good relationship with her mother. They would go on nail dates and, you know, just living the young hot girl life as a, you know, a young beautiful 23-year-old woman. And she was in school at the time. She attended Norwalk Community College, where she was studying to become a physical therapist. That was her dream, and the end was to become a physical therapist. So she had went on a Bumble date with a guy named Michael LaFontaine, and he's a 37-year-old white male. They met on Bumble. They were texting for a couple days, and then they decided to meet up and hang out. So among the time of them planning to meet up and hang out, they were just texting, getting to know each other pretty much. And I guess Lauren felt comfortable enough to, you know, invite him over, and she wanted to hang out. They wanted to hang out. So she invited him over to her apartment. And sadly, that is where her last moments were. Michael LaFontaine was the last person to see her alive. And according to his records, they ate food, had some drinks, played a few games, watched a movie. He said at one point she had went outside to meet her brother, came back inside, went in the bathroom for about 10-15 minutes, and then came out. They continued to finish watching the movie. After that, she fell asleep. So he got tired as well. So he carried her to her bedroom, laid her in the bed, and he got in her bed as well. And they went to sleep. He said when he woke up at 3 a.m., he went to use the restroom at that time, and she was awake and breathing and conscious. He heard her snoring, he says. But he went back to sleep, woke back up around 6:30 in the morning, and she was turned on her right side, blood coming out of her right nostril, and she was not breathing. So that's what prompted him to call 911. I'm sorry, Carla. She was the responding officer to the time, and she quoted that he looked visibly shaken at the scene. So when she arrived, though, Lauren was on her back in the bathroom, and she was not breathing. Unfortunately, she was not conscious. So this was the account that Michael had that took place when he was with Lauren last, up until her last moments. This is what he said happened allegedly. The problem I have with this case is initially there was no real investigation. There was no diving into what actually happened to her, trying to get an account of her last moments, and really trying to just vet everyone and all parties that were, you know, mentioned. Just no vetting of them at all. The Bridgeport Police Department in Connecticut, what they did was pretty much absolutely nothing. That's pretty much what they did. So sad to say, when they got to the scene, they questioned Michael a little bit, but didn't really, you know, dive into him or whatever. No contact with the family whatsoever about Lauren's state. No one ever reached out to the mother, the brother. No one reached out to Lauren's family at all to notify them that their loved one had passed away and was found dead in her apartment. And I just find that so crazy, because it wasn't like this woman was, you know, found on the street or something with no identification. Like, she was found in her apartment. So it's kind of like, how did y'all feel to contact the families if she was literally found in her apartment? is kind of crazy to me. It just seems like the Bridgeport Police Department didn't really do their due diligence in that. And I'm just kind of confused, like, why wouldn't you notify the family after you found Lauren dead in her home? It just doesn't make sense to me. They didn't really communicate her death to the family in a timely manner. And remember that point in the story. I'm going to come back to that later on. The family was on alert because the mother had been trying to reach Lauren, texting her, trying to ask her if she was okay. Mind you, Lauren was very communicative with her family, so it was very unlike her to go over 24 hours without communicating with someone. So they immediately knew something was up. So the mother was getting worried. So her and her brother, the mother and Lauren's brother, her son, went over to Lauren's apartment only to find a note on Lauren's door that said, if you're looking for Miss Fields, please call this number. So when they called the number, it was the landlord. The landlord came downstairs, and Lauren's mother, Mrs. Fields, describes herself as like just getting sick and choked up and trying to hold back the tears. And when the landlord came and greeted her, the landlord delivered the unfortunate news that Miss Lauren Smithfield had passed away. If the family wanted to get more information, they needed to contact the detectives. And the family was very taken aback by this. They were horrified, as any family would be, being notified that their loved one had just passed away in a matter like this, and especially with the police not communicating that with them and finding out from the landlord, you know. So the landlord gave the family the detective's number. When the family called the detective, they were kind of, you know, just kind of like brushed to the side in a way. The detective was not very informative with the family. The main account that the detective told the family was that they did not need to worry about Michael LaFontaine because he was a very nice man and he seemed fine, you know. So completely very dismissive of everything, and just kind of told the family that no, nothing really out of the ordinary, you know, just, yeah, your daughter died, but, you know, chill out, it's no big deal, pretty much. And in a subsequent phone call, they actually hung up very abruptly with the family, and that to me is just wrong, because how can you already be negligent in the fact of delivering this news to a family that their loved one has passed away, and then you're gonna hang up on me? Like, you're rude. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're rude. The family, after they had found this out through the by calling the detectives this information about Michael LaFontaine and just all his whereabouts and what really went on, the family went back to her apartment and went inside to, you know, look around and collect some of her items. Among going in the apartment, though, it was very, very tough. Imagine your loved one just was found dead in their apartment, and you weren't notified by the police. And you went into the place, and you just see kind of like how the place was left among the last moments of your loved one being there. I mean, that is in itself is very traumatic. For me, that would be a very traumatic experience, and I don't know how I would be able to get through something like that. It's just way too much for me. And the family, the mother and the brother and some of the other family members went to the apartment to collect some of her belongings. And among going in there, they found pills, they found bloody sheets, a used condom. I mean, it just seemed like the police didn't even try to collect evidence on the scene, or even, you know, investigate a little bit of what was going on, you know. It just, everything was just left as is, in no regard at all for any type of trying to come to any type of coming to Jesus moment of like what happened to Lauren. It just, stuff was just left as is, which is absolutely bullshit. Like, how could you not collect evidence? What was the problem? The family wasn't really getting any answers from the police at this point, and the case had kind of stalled itself. So a few weeks passed, and it was coming up on Lauren's 24th birthday. And once her birthday hit, the family had rallied a couple community activists in the area, along with other friends. And they were going to march to the mayor's office. Joseph P. Gannon was the mayor of Bridgeport at the time. And they marched straight to his office and kind of, you know, held a protest outside. And just, you know, demanded answers from the police department, from the Bridgeport Police Department, and from the city, period. Like, what was going on in the case. So, mind you, nothing had been said. No remarks from the mayor or anyone had been said about what was going on or any type of update on her case at all. After this march was held, that's when the mayor decided to speak publicly, give his first remarks about the case. And basically, he kind of said that the case was handled poorly by the police and that the family was notified in an unacceptable manner and the communication and everything was handled in an unacceptable manner. So kind of just owning up, saying, yeah, everything was not handled correctly. But mind you, no follow-up has ever been made with the family. So you want to get on TV and say all this and that, but you're not really following through with the 1-2 hook. Like, you just there, you know, you just saying stuff, not really having no action. And at this point, the family is just fed up. They're kind of like, okay, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, you haven't been giving me no answer. Now you want to get on television and sit here and say that it's been held unacceptable. So what are y'all doing about it, pretty much? And it was at that point that the mayor announced that the way the case was handled was being investigated by the Office of Internal Affairs. And so in that time, they placed the detective Kevin Cronin on leave while the case was being investigated by the Office of Internal Affairs. And until that investigation is complete and closed and disciplinary action is handled, they would be pulled out. That detective that abruptly hung up on the family, Kevin Cronin, was placed on leave. So it's just like, okay, y'all saying this after the fact, weeks after the initial uproar was caused. So it's kind of like you didn't really have, you didn't really try to do anything until after the fact, you know, and that's kind of bullshit to me. So the family still is going through with plans to sue the mayor, the detectives, and the Bridgeport police chief because everything was just dropped on all courts. All they know is that their daughter, the official cause of death for their daughter was a high dose of fentanyl in her system and alcohol and another drug in her system as well. But it just was high levels of it that is what caused her cause of death. And as you know, y'all, fentanyl is killing millions of people. It's ruining families. It's running rampant throughout our community. So you guys, if you're taking drugs on for a recreational basis, please be careful, because fentanyl is out here and it is taking lives. That's the only consensus that the family had, that their daughter had died from an overdose, essentially, a drug overdose, essentially. And so I said all that to say that still kind of didn't define who their daughter was. I mean, she wasn't known to do drugs like that, so the family was still very confused as to, like, where did she get the drugs from? Who gave her the drugs? You know, we still don't know these things. And a lot of these cases, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the show, The Pharmacist on Netflix. In that show, it documents a white boy who basically died in a bad drug transaction. And their dad kind of went and investigated, you know, following through. And it's crazy because in that case, the city went through, well, kind of not really, but seemed like they had more support in going through, and like with the fact of trying to figure out where these drugs came from that killed the son. So it's kind of like, why didn't the Bridgeport Police Department have that same initiative in trying to be like, okay, fentanyl killed this woman, where did she get it from and who supplied it to her? That investigation never took place. So it's kind of like no due diligence was done there. And that's what I mean when I say, like, there's certain things that can be done to kind of keep a case alive and keep it to where you're continuously collecting evidence to figure out and give some closure to the families, instead of just, you know, sitting there like a deer in headlights. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. So I don't understand why the Bridgeport Police Department didn't try to get, you know, their drug enforcement agency in on the situation sooner, since fentanyl is such a high risk thing to deal with and it kills so many people and it's so deadly. You would think they would want to investigate that in a promptly manner to try to figure out where this fentanyl was coming from that literally took the life of a young girl, you know. But none of that was done. initially, until after the fact that the family walked and was gaining all this attention on social media. It was until after the fact all this stuff was done. So, and it's still kind of like, we're still waiting to see, like, or we still don't have any answers to this day. Like, we're just like, okay, she died of fentanyl, but like, who gave it to her? How did she get it? Was she forcibly taking it? Because one thing that I do find red flag is just that the family found a used condom in her apartment, but Michael's account does not detail them having any sexual relations at all. So it's kind of like, what's going on? Like, what happened? You know, to me, it just makes me curious. Like, what else don't we know? And then also the fact that them saying her brother came to the house and then she went in the bathroom. Like, what does that have to do with anything? What's the connection there? There's too many holes in the story that just don't make sense. So back to the way the Bridgeport Police Department handled contacting the family that their loved one had passed away. Another woman the same day, her name was Brenda Lee Rawls. She was also found dead the same day in her home alone, and her family was not notified at all by the police or the city that their loved one had died. The family actually had to do their own investigation and figure out what was wrong with their loved one, with Miss Brenda. Like, where did she go? What was going on with her? And that it was a red flag for her family as well, because she was very communicative, and the last account they had of her was that she went to go hang out with a male acquaintance, and then next thing you know, she was found dead in her home, and that's the last person that saw her alive. So the family, they were like, okay, where's my loved one? You know, hadn't heard from her. That was a red flag for them. They went and started doing their due diligence to follow up with the male acquaintance that she had last seen and been with. They go to his place. They like, where's she at? He like, oh, she died. I called the police. They tried to save her, but she died. And then he gave the family some of her old clothing that she had, which was odd. And the family still, after that part, still have not heard from the police department that their loved one had died. Now, this is the same day. This lady died the same day Lauren died. And the same thing happened. The family wasn't notified properly. And this case was so bad that the family had to contact the coroner's office, the state examiner's office, to get the body of their loved one, because literally nobody was saying anything. They had treated her as well as if she was a Jane Doe, even though she was found dead in her own home. So if you find someone dead in their own home, like, why would you not? I don't understand what the delay would be in contacting the family, because I'm pretty sure there's something in the home that would lead you to a family member to notify, you know what I mean? Because they're in their home. And that, to me, just stuck out as a red flag. The detective on that case has also been removed and put on leave of absence because of how they handled that case as well. And both of these cases are black women in the same area, both found dead, and the family's not notified or due diligence done. And in that case, they hadn't released what was the cause of death for Brenda yet, but I'm not sure if they've released it already yet or not. I couldn't find much information about it, but they had not, last time I checked, they had not released her cause of death yet. So it's just interesting, like, the due diligence, like, nothing was done. You couldn't even tell the families, hey, your loved one has died. We are very sorry. We're doing everything we can to try to keep the case alive and try to figure out what happened, bring some closure for you guys. None of that was said to the families. They literally had to find out their loved one had died on their own from doing their own investigation. So imagine if the family never followed up. You know, what if they're like, okay, she's gonna turn up in a couple days, she's gonna turn up in a few days, and they're just waiting, and she doesn't turn up. Like, imagine that. And then they come to find out the lady has been dead for days. Like, imagine that. And that's just, I mean, that's crazy to me. So It just isn't right because when you look at cases like Gabby Petito, that case was all over national television, you know. And I feel like then the police, even in her case, to me, even though Gabby Petito's case was much more widely broadcasted on the news and everywhere, as you can see, I still feel like even in Gabby's case, the police did not do their due diligence in following up with the male. They did not do their due diligence in investigating, trying to see like, hey, what were her last moments like? And let's really press the person who was last seen with them alive. If they don't do their due diligence of pressing the person that last saw the victim, you might as well throw the whole case in the garbage, because nothing's going to get solved when stuff is handled like that, to me, in my opinion. I've never seen a case where the police didn't question the person that last saw the victim alive, and it was easy for them to solve. Like, the police literally always start with that. And it's like in this case, in these two cases, they didn't. And even in Gabby's case, I feel like they did it. And look how that ended. They found homeboy dead, and she was found dead first, and then they found him dead a couple weeks later. So it's like they kind of dropped the ball in that aspect. And I don't know, like, what kind of processes these police departments have in place to where it's like a check and balance in the investigation process. Like, okay, there's somebody coming back to follow up, like, oh, did you notify them? Did you let the family know? Did you notify friends? Did you follow through with the person that last saw them? Okay, there has to be some type of system where they can check these things off and have it like signed off as like, yes, this time, this date, this took place. We notified them on this time. We talked to this person, signed off here. Boom, boom, boom. If none of that is, no checks and balances like that are in place, how do these law enforcement agencies expect to stay organized, or even doing a thorough job in the cases they're handling? I don't get it. Because if your case isn't getting any attention on social media, you're another person where you weren't notified, you didn't know your loved one had passed away, you had to find out on your own, doing your own investigative work. Imagine if you didn't have the spotlight on you, you know? What does that feel like for those families? What does that feel like for them? Because it's just completely unfair in my eyes. It's like, damn, you didn't even give them people a heads up or nothing. Like, when white women go missing like this, their cases are plastered, shoved down their throats, you know, missing white women syndrome on 20. You know, we hear about it. But when these black women go missing or are found dead, it just seems like we're kind of just brushed under the rug. Like, there's not really much effort put into our cases. Even if it's like, hey, someone overdosed, there's no due diligence in even trying to figure out where the heck they got the drugs from, who sold them the drugs, and trying to lead a follow-up arrest with that person or figure out where they're getting these pills from that are killing people. You know, even if you wanted to take that approach, like, y'all still dropped the ball, and it's unacceptable. Bridgeport Police Department has failed this young lady. Connecticut, you failed this young lady. And the mayor failed this young lady. So I really pray that the family gets their justice, they get their closure, they get all the answers they need from this case, and just understanding what happened to Lauren, because it's just ridiculous. And I don't understand how someone could pass away and the families not know and the police know for days. I just don't get that. And I pray that Miss Brenda's family as well gets the closure they need as well, because it doesn't make sense for me. I could never fathom going through something like that with a family member that I'm speechless. It's no words for that. It's really no words. So my heart goes out to you guys. And just please be safe, y'all. Please keep your loved ones close. Please talk to them, tell them you love them, and just be careful and watch your back. Make sure you're not getting caught lacking. Like, we got to protect each other. And if you see something happening or some shady stuff going on and you feel like you can help out, help them. You know, what if that was your sister, your mom, your daughter, your cousin? You know, what if that was your loved one? You want somebody to speak up and, you know, try to help you out. So if you see a man doing some shit to a female out in the street, say something, speak up, because we need more people to be protectors versus people who are just standing by silent recording on their phone, you know. That's all I have to say for this video, y'all. All the sources will be in the description box. All the articles that I've used to kind of draw my research and tell the story will be in the description box. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications, because you never know when City Girl is gonna hit you with another video, boo. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here at this point, you are real, and you might as well go ahead and subscribe. Click the subscribe button. But thank you again. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends. Spread the word. We got to keep Lauren's name alive in order for us to get the details and the closure we want. So love you guys so much. See y'all next time. Bye.